I was raised by women, women who were strong and tough, the type of women that always pushed me to do more. Their love came in the form of high expectations and high levels of trust. As a child, I was awarded a lot of freedom. I was able to explore the world independently at a young age. Being a child of divorced parents, I began traveling alone at the age of 5. Even as a child, I loved the idea of getting on a plane and just going. Thoughts of traveling filled my head. It's all I wanted to do. I saw myself everywhere and anywhere. It gave me hope that there was something more than this small town I was living in, and that I would one day have a chance to meet it all. But until I was able to start traveling, I continued to journal. I wrote down things I saw, things I felt. It helped me heal. It helped me move on. I was starting a new life at college, but I was still dealing with the pain and the abuse that I had felt, and this would linger for many years. Some of my journal entries were happy, some were sad, some were angry, and some barely made sense. Often I was mad at myself, often I was mad at him. It was a conversation between myself and everything that I felt. Sometime in undergrad, I took a prose class. It was the first time I was ever able to show my work to other people. I was both nervous and scared, but when the professor said that we would all read each other's work and critique one by one, I almost dropped the course. What struck me about this class was the apprehension that everyone came in with, but the level of comfort that came through in their writings. They told stories of divorce and abuse and hate and love and recovery, and it was inspiring, and I wanted more. Around the same time, I was introduced to analog photography, and it quickly became my love. I wanted to be in the darkroom all the time. I loved the darkness, the sound of the rushing water, the movement in the liquids. It was all magic to me, and I just wanted to do it forever. I was inspired by many photographers, predominantly George Creedson, Dwayne Michaels, Michael Lewis, and Francesca Woodman. They all made beautiful photo narratives, and I was so captivated in making my own stories that I got lost in the images for hours. I was never the best at putting things into words, so photography gave me the opportunity to truly express myself in ways that I had not been able to do before. It gave me a voice when I thought I did not have one. It gave me a talent when I thought I was talentless. Photography was something I began to excel at, and people enjoyed my work, and I enjoyed creating it. I became fascinated with photo essays and documentary photography because it provided me with a story that I would not be able to tell on my own. Storytelling and photography became one to me. It wasn't enough just to capture a good image. I wanted to communicate something more, something I couldn't put into words. I found myself much better at communicating through the camera than with the word. During my last year at Emmanuel, while I was working on my thesis, I was introduced to our resident artist named Haran Kim. She was a printmaker by training doing a residency at Emmanuel. During her time, she was creating the most beautiful books I had ever seen. She said that her books helped her tell the journey that she was experiencing. Her books, she says, are visual records of reflections and transitions that occur during her memories of place. Her work tells a story of a journey, and whether real or imagined, defined her as a person. Haran inspired me to create my own book, incorporating that into my thesis. Not long after, I took up bookbinding as a hobby. My books were uneven and amateur, but I loved the process and the time and the patience it took to create them. It was a form of therapy for me. Before I knew it, everything began coming together for me. The writing, the imagery, the books all became one. Piece by piece, something began to form. I was able to pick up all these pieces that I found and make them into a piece of art. It made me proud. Since then, I've explored the many ways imagery and stories can be used to help others. I worked with my second grade class recently and an artist from the Mills Gallery in Boston to create photo books. Children picked from hundreds of famous images and then told their own stories. Now I would like to take the time to try to see how bookbinding and imagery and writing all come together for people with post-traumatic stress disorder. This community often is misrepresented, and I feel like it's time for them to regain their voice. Every writing workshop will be led by a writer who will follow prompts or allow them to write independently. Every art making workshop will be led by a bookbinder who will teach them new techniques, new forms of bookbinding, new materials, things that they will use to create their final products. At the end of the project, participants will leave with a completed book made by their hand filled with their memories. But at the end of the day, it's not centered around the books, it's centered around connections. This project is meant to provide participants with a support system made up of people who understand their situation and that can look them in the eye and say, I am with you.